I just realized that I filmed a bunch of this video without my light on, and so I apologize for the quality of the lighting in this video. Hi everyone, it's Salia from HustleSZN, and today I'm doing a video on my recent reread of the Ember in the Ashes series. Obviously, I read these in preparation for a Reaper at the Gates, which my copy's not even here. I think I left it in Kingston. Anyways, I wanted to reread the series because I read it a long time ago and I know that there was a lot of stuff that I had forgotten. Not only that, but when I first read this series, I absolutely loved the first book, and for whatever reason, the second book fell short for me. So just overall opinion, yes, I liked this book so much more the second time around. I kept waiting to see which part would be the part where I was like, oh yes, I remember now why I hated this book, or oh yes, I remember why I thought this book wasn't as good as the first one, and it just never came. So I'm not quite sure what exactly made me not like the second book. So I assume if you are watching this video that you've already read both of these books. I'm just going to do a spoiler discussion of both of them. I'm not going to recap what happens. I have my notes. I'll start with the first book. I honestly forgot how good this book is. The tone is perfect. The pace is perfect. There's literally never a dull moment, and there's never a point where the story kind of is stagnant or that the characters aren't improving or changing or literally doing something so important, which is crazy because the book is like 400 some pages and it literally doesn't feel like any of it is being wasted on anything. A lot of people talk about the character development in these books, and 100% I think that that is one of the biggest appeals for this series. In this book alone, it is just so incredible to watch Laya's story as she goes from not knowing anything about how to be a spy to completely overcoming her fear. And given what happens at the beginning of the book where she runs away and isn't able to help her brother, that resonated with me so much. That feeling of in the moment, what happens if I freak out? Sometimes I think, at least in medicine, like you get so much training in terms of, you know, if there's an emergency or if someone's truly sick, what you're gonna do. But what if in that moment you freeze? What if in that moment you forget and you can't help somebody, or you know, you look stupid and you need to get someone else to come help? I, for some reason, related to it so much, even though I have yet to freeze in the moment, but I just feel like there will be a day where I experience this. It was so incredible and I really enjoyed it. I was also just left with so many more questions that I didn't realize I still had. We still don't know who Cook is. We still technically don't know Elias's dad, and it is said multiple times by Cook that Laya doesn't really look like her mom, and so I think we're gonna find out her mom might be somebody else. I loved the commandant. I forgot how bad of a person she was and just how scary she can be. I forgot how good the tension is between Elias and Laya, and I never feel like it's forced between the two of them. They do have like an immediate attraction to one another, but I kind of like that neither of them give into it right away. I like that both of them are still extremely skeptical of one another, and that throughout the book both of them toy with the idea of being with someone else. I just appreciate that because I think in real life you would struggle with it. Somehow that felt more like today's relationship. Like it doesn't matter how attracted you are, but you don't commit right away to somebody. It's like you have to have your options open. And just the plot of this book is also so good. I love anytime there's trials at school. It's an easy way to have a really great plot if you actually think out some really good trials. And obviously with the Ogurs like giving all the cryptic messages about what the future holds, I think that was super well done. I don't think I actually have anything bad to say about the first book. The only thing I can think of that sort of bothered me is the one night where Laya was given, that sounds so bad, where Laya got to go to Elias's room as a reward. I don't think they slept at all. Like they pulled the all-nighter and then they were completely functioning the next day and they were doing crazy, dangerous things, and neither of them complained about being tired. That was the only thing where I kind of was taken out of the story and I was like, real talks, it's not as easy as you made it seem. But otherwise, I think I liked everything about it. Everything. I even loved the swords on Elias's back. The magic system as well is so good in this book. Sabatahir does such an incredible job at sprinkling the information but not giving you too much at a time. She almost is going painstakingly slow. Like, I, by the end of this book, am dying to know, why is Helene singing? What does that mean? What is this deal with Laya sometimes disappearing? You just have so many questions by the end of the book, and she does such a great job of showing you that there is going to be a lot of depth to the magic system, but not giving you too much at once, and it just creates this feeling of, I need to continue and I need to find out, and you know something epic is gonna come. Since I'd already read the second book, I was curious to see if some of the spoilers from the second book, how obvious are they in the first book. So the first one I looked for is the armlet, and yes, the armlet is so prominent in the first book, and Laya's literally always touching it and always like feeling it, and I guess the fact that the creatures are always drawn towards her armlet was a clue that I did not pick up on. We know from the second book that Keenan is evil, or is the Nightbringer, and so I kept trying to see if I could see that in the first book, and while there are very subtle comments about him being dark, it was not done in a way that I think was supposed to lead you to believe that he might be an evil character. I think the one thing is that it is mentioned multiple times that someone from within the resistance betrayed them, and that's how Laya's parents got captured, and that's why the commandant sort of always knows what's going on with the resistance. I guess she brings up that issue and Laya thinks about it a little bit, but then it falls to the wayside as Laya's trying to figure out other things, like more importantly trying to get Elias out and etc. So I think she does a good job of making it an issue if you really pay attention to it, but then drops it off. But technically we never get an answer. So if you're astute enough, you might still be skeptical of some of the people. Like I was saying, just seeing Laya's growth in this book was so cool. Literally every time she returns to the commandant's office, she's taking one extra step. People always complain that books will tell you things instead of showing you, and I truly think for Laya's growth in this book, you are shown how good she gets. The first time she goes to the commandant, she's just too scared to do absolutely anything, and she has no information when she comes back to the resistance. And then the second time, she lies just a little bit about the information that she's gotten so that she can get them to work with her, and you're just like, damn girl, work. And by the third time, she's like truly manipulating people. She'll use her relationships with people to her advantage, and you're just like, yes queen. Like, she was just so invested in her own journey. So Laya might not be strong in the sense of physical strength, but she definitely is like mentally strong, and she definitely takes an active role in her own life. If you continue her journey into the second book, she learns to no longer need people, in my opinion. So in the first book, despite the fact that she's taking an active role, I still felt like she was relying on other people to help her. So she was relying on Keenan, she was relying on Izzy and Cook, she was relying on Elias and his ability. And I think in the second book, she kind of learns to stop needing the validation of other people and start being able to recognize her own worth and doing that independently. Helene's point of view in the second book was such a nice touch. I think her story was one of my favorites in the second one. I'm going on a tangent right now. I think her story really reminds me of Kestrel's, if you've read the Winners trilogy. In the second book, she kind of goes through a similar struggle where she starts to question some of the ideals that she's learnt throughout her life from her father and from the empire that she's a part of. And I think Helene goes through the same thing, where she's like, I've grown up being a person who goes by the rules, or I've always accepted these things as right and wrong, and I don't cross these lines. And that whole idea of what I've been taught is that really what's right, and moralities, and can I change my values now? Does that change my personality? Does that mean I'm no longer loyal? And when loyalty is all you have, I don't even know if I'm making sense anymore, but I loved Helene's journey through that. Elias's character development is also seen in the second book. He was just learning to let go and let other people make their own decisions and to give people space. I think he's so used to just jumping in there and saving everybody and realizing that sometimes saving someone doesn't mean doing it for them. People are allowed to make their own decisions, and not everybody wants to be saved or wants your help. It was kind of interesting because even though he's like the cool, calm, collected guy who knows how to get you out of bad situations, his character arc in this one of learning to let go, it almost kind of made him look like a control freak, and I kind of liked that. You saw a different side of him, and you kind of saw how something that benefited him in the first book suddenly was stopping him, and learning to control that. All of your character traits are technically both strengths and weaknesses depending on the situation, and I loved how seeing him in a new setting and going through new experiences also showed you the other side of this, that Elias's training and the way he wants to jump in and save people can also be a negative and work against him, and him learning that and seeing that in a new light was really, really, really cool in this book. The other thing is I just forgot how hard this book is to read, not because the writing's bad, but because literally within the first like 40-60 pages you find out that Elias is gonna die, and it is just like heartbreaking. As soon as you read that, you're like, wait, what? Will that really happen? And you know, you're kind of like, oh, maybe not. Maybe the Talus will work good enough that it'll cure him. Everyone seems to accept it like it's a fact, like Elias is just dying, done. And how are we all okay with this? Like, this book is already heartbreaking, and it makes me so nervous to read the third book because everyone's reaction so far is just that they're dying. It was just so hard to watch Keenan undo so much of the confidence that she'd built up in the first book. I was literally like, Laya, girl. I think obviously it was worth it because by the end of the book, hopefully, she's realized that she needs to just really trust herself and that she has the ability. She doesn't need Elias around to make her be that better person. Obviously, he's a great influence, but like, you don't need him. I really just want her to know that she has it all within herself. All right, so let's talk about Helene a little bit. I came to really, really like her in the second book. In the first book, she's just this really badass character, but she's almost given the role of party pooper because she keeps trying to stop Elias from doing the things you want Elias to do, and you've gotten so much of his background that it's almost hard to understand where Helene is coming from. But the second book, I think, really gives her a fair chance and you see her shine, and I just loved her character development as well. I feel like I've said that about everybody, but it's just so true. These characters are so good, and I think that's what makes this series so good. When I went to BookCon, Sabate here talked a bit about Helene, and she talked about how Helene was based off of, most of you probably know, maybe this is on Twitter somewhere, but she talked about how Helene is based off of one of her good childhood friends who stood up for her to bullies, and I was like, this is adorable. Helene and her sisters is what I wanted Feyre and her sisters to be like. In this one, you can kind of see like there's times where they all love each other, and there are times where you can see that they just truly don't get along. But more than that, Helene's two sisters, you can tell right off the bat, even though they're secondary characters, they feel fleshed out and they feel like real people. Whereas in Feyre's case, I just like, her sisters were so annoying. I don't understand why you suddenly like these people who've treated you like trash. I didn't like the sisters being added to the story, whereas in this one, I loved Helene's sisters coming into the story. I absolutely love Livy, and we haven't even fully met her yet. I have a feeling that she's gonna play a huge role in the third book. I love that as soon as she realized, like, her whole family gets killed or whatever, but she is so willing to stay strong and to survive, and she's not gonna let Marcus get the best of her. I loved that right away. She's like, you know what, I'm not gonna let Marcus think that he can scare me because I don't want to sleep with him or that I'm worried he's gonna abuse me. And she goes to him and she's like, I'm not gonna give him power over this situation. And I just love it. I love that she's not afraid to go against the norm. She gets ladies in waiting from Marcus's family who are plebes, and I guess so they're lower class. And it was so nice to see that even though Helene is technically the strong one, and in this case Livy's the one who got screwed over and she was like the baby of the family, she's not backing down at all. Not only is it going to be amazing to see them interact, I truly think Helene has a lot that she can learn from Livy. Helene thinks Livy is naive because Helene has had the training, but in some ways I think it's Helene who's the innocent and naive one. Helene in my mind is just a very badass Hufflepuff, and Livy on the other hand is quite cunning and more than ready to manipulate people. When them and Elias and Laya and everybody are finally working together, I think we're gonna have this amazing band of people with so many cool abilities. Oh, it's gonna be so good. I'm so excited for the third and fourth book. I'm worried, but I'm excited. And then the final thing was just the last scene of this book was such a nice ending, especially if you read them back to back. It just feels so complete. It feels like we've come full circle. In the very first chapter of An Ember in the Ashes, you see Laya when her brother is taken by the marshals, and then to see her whole journey trying to find Darren, and then finally in the last scene of this book, her and Darren together, and you're just like, whoa, she did it. She accomplished this one small task and it literally was life-changing. It was just so nice to see, even though the one task that had been driving the two books was finished, so much had changed. You were like, damn. And Darren has no idea, and Darren's probably also changed and we just don't know how yet exactly. So, which kind of leads me to my next question, I guess, for the third book. I wonder what's going to be the driving force in the third book. I'm sure it's going to be more political and war type stuff, but it feels like a chapter of this saga has now closed, and it'd be interesting to see if the next two books similarly have this one bigger goal as well, because that'd be cool, because the first two books were about finding Darren, and then the second two books might be like overthrowing the Nightbringer and Commandant. So we're gonna see. I'm very, 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 very excited to read the third book. If you can't tell, it's been so hard not watching other people's talks on the books because I haven't read it yet, so I'm just very, very excited to start the third book. Alright, so that is it for my reread of An Ember in the Ashes and A Torch Against the Night, and just what my thoughts were the second time reading them. Thanks for watching! Hannah from Clockwork Reader, which everyone already knows, she recently called Elias boyfriend material, and I thought about it and I was like, I totally see where she is coming from. I only have a few characters that I personally really like, and usually they're not the type that Elias is. I usually like kind of scrawnier, more artsy type boys, and so the two that I like a lot, although I guess one of them's not really scrawny. I've always liked Christian Ozera from Vampire Academy. I absolutely love his personality. I think he's so snarky and funny. And then I've also really liked Julian Blackthorne from the Dark Artifices trilogy. And so I was trying to think, if Elias was a modern day boy, what type of boy would he be? Like, would he be a fuckboy? Would he be like more of a quiet, sensitive type? I don't know where he'd fall, because he has like the gym rat qualities. And although he's like super cautious and meticulous in these books, he has a playful side. I think it quickly goes away because of the events and the tone of the story. A couple times when he's alone with Laya, he'll make a joke. A couple times with Helene. I can't remember exact examples, but there definitely were a couple times where I was like, okay, I see you. So I think he actually can be quite flirtatious. So I just wanted to bring that up.